Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
I love that song. I asked for it because, when we were doing this prosperity series called Abundant Living, and I've never thought of that song as being a prosperity song, because we always think about prosperity as like, I'm going to receive my good. And that song is about being in harmony with all that is. But that's what I want to talk about today. That and a couple other things. But first, some humor. Oh, also, I want to acknowledge, aren't these flowers beautiful today? We had a beautiful memorial service. Tim Walker, the founder, the artist at the Neon Gallery in West Alabama, he died in the floods in the Hill Country, tragically, saved his entire family. And we had, the sanctuary was full yesterday as we celebrated his life and just offered our compassion for the family. And Suzette asked if we could use these flowers today's service, so I gratefully accepted those. But just send your love to everyone who knew and loved Tim Walker. All right, this is Mark Twain. Now, there are about 4 different versions of this, and he wrote them all. So this obviously never happened in real life, but it's a funny story. So Mark Twain went to hear a missionary from Africa talk. And after the talk, Twain said, "The man told us about the sufferings of the people, and he pleaded for help in such moving simplicity that I mentally doubled the 50 cents I had intended to put in the plate. He described their needs so vividly that the dollar I had in mind gradually rose to 5. Then he continued, and I felt that all the cash I carried on me would be insufficient, and I decided to write a large check. And then he went on, and he went on and on and on, and I abandoned the idea of the check. And still he went on, and I got back to $5, and he went on and on. I got back to 4, 2, 1, and still he went on and on. And when the plate come around, I took 10 cents out." Funny. Oh, I love that. So I'll try not to go too long today, so that doesn't happen for our offering. That's going to come a little bit later. We're talking about, this is week 2 of our 4-week series called Abundant Living. And last week, I talked about the philosophical principles that underlie our teaching on abundance, that we are wholly and eternally connected to the source of all that is, and that if we can get on the wavelength of that truth, we will begin to see that all our needs are met in beautiful and profound ways. And we talked about the ocean, standing next to the ocean. There's so much magnificence. So I'm going to go all over the place today, just so you know. We're going to go to Charles Fillmore from The 12 Powers of Man. We're going to go to even back further to the ancient Hermetic principles. We're going to go back even further than that to the very first lines of the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and some other places in between. So I'd like to start with the idea, the reason I asked Julia to sing that song, because part of living fully an abundant life is not to be looking at God as the great vending machine in the sky. That we're just going to put in our affirmation and I'm just going to get my financial good. That's the way it is. It's not quite like that. And we also don't want to think that our good is all that matters, that there is a way that Spirit harmonizes the good of all. And all we have to do is take a walk in nature and we can see that. That there is a natural way that things are held and moved together, and the way we understand that is because it's all one. Everything is connected in this web of life, this web of incarnate reality that all comes from the infinite source of the eternal one that we call God, or you call God whatever name you want, it doesn't care. But it is the ultimate reality, the first cause. Consciousness of pure non-being, but is pure being that it had no form, and so it wanted to deliver itself into infinite forms. Ernest Holmes, his definition for love is the self-givingness of spirit into creation. Isn't that a beautiful phrase? The self-givingness of God into the universe. And that's what we are. And that's what we experience. And if we can get in harmony, in balance with that principle, then all our needs are met. Jesus spoke about it again and again and again, about look to the birds of the air, consider the lilies of the field. It's not about greed and trying to get yours. It's about living in the kingdom of abundance. So, I've mentioned harmony and balance a couple times, but there's a word that Charles Fillmore used in this realm, and he called it order. Order as a divine principle. One of the 12 powers that he talks about. So there are 3 different readings. I'm going to read all 3 of them, then I might break them down, I might not. We'll see where we go. Divine order. Order is the first law of the universe. Indeed, there could be no universe unless its various parts were kept in perfect order. The facts of spirit are of spiritual character, and when understood in right relationship, they are orderly. Orderliness is law and is the test of true science. And then this comes from the revealing word under order. The divine idea of order is the idea of adjustment. I love that. It means adjusting ourselves to be in harmony with it. And as this is established in man's thought, his mind and affairs will be at one with universal harmony. And this I found from an old pamphlet that he had created somewhere back in the beginnings of our movement. Man can never exercise dominion, and every time he says man, you know he means humanity. I'm not changing the language, but you know what I mean. Man can never exercise dominion until he knows who and what he is. Knowing brings forth that knowledge into the external by exercising it in divine order, which is mind, idea, and manifestation. And he talks about this a lot. Mind, idea, manifestation. And so instead of thinking about our need, and I know there are teachers that say it differently, that you get a vision board and you put on there in exact detail what it is you're wishing to manifest in your life, go for it. If that's the path to call us. God is so big and so capable of blessing us. I think that works for some people. It's never really been my way of interacting with these principles. That if I can just simply still my sometimes greedy mind, my fearful mind, and just get back in harmony, adjust my consciousness so that I am in harmony with all that life is, and I create receptivity to allow good to flow to me. And I have done it with varying degrees of success in my 32 years in this movement. But today I want to share with you just some ideas. Anybody here that was on the Japan trip with us last fall? Is it just me? We had a wonderful group of about 16 from Unity and 16 from my old church in Dallas. We took a pilgrimage to Japan. My first time to ever be in that country. And I've heard it's the most clean country. The people are so friendly and welcoming. It's just a very ordered society. Very homogeneous kind of a way of being. But I also noticed that there's a simplicity. That everything is beautifully, carefully done and mindfully done, but there's just this simplicity. The streets are clean. But in most of the cities, we didn't see giant billboards flashing and changing in front of us. There was just a quiet stillness in the culture, which was nurturing. We went upstairs. We went up the mountain to a seminary. I am in multiple cultures. I told you I was all over the place today. A Buddhist, what do you call that? Monastery. That's what I was looking for. And they also have an inn. They welcome travelers. And so there are about 28 of us Americans in our group, and we were assigned rooms. We all had to double up, and there were no beds. You heard that right. There were no beds. There was a straw mat, and then we had a little mattress, if you can call that, on top of it, and a buckwheat pillow. None of us slept that night. The walls were paper thin because they were literally made of paper, little rice paper walls, and some of us snored, and everyone heard. It was quite a night. And we got up. We didn't wake up at 6 a.m., and we got to be with the monks as they were chanting their morning chants. It was just exquisite and beautiful, but we were all a little tired. Someone did tell the group there's a vending machine that has hot coffee, so we were able to get caffeine. I was. But then when we were gathered back on the bus and we were leaving, all a little tired from the trip, the tour director, she said, yeah, I get this probably wasn't. We're probably going to remove this from the next thing. He's like, no, she said, would you like to have more than one night here? And everybody went, no. And then she said, well, should we take it off the tour completely? All went, no. It was a wonderful experience for one night. But the simplicity, the beauty, the monastery was surrounding a gorgeous gardens with fountains, every plant carefully tended to, mindfulness, gratitude, harmony, order. And even though without sleep and very little caffeine, I was able to meditate to such a deep place of just feeling some connection with all that is in this simple place in the mountains of Japan. So when we're thinking about manifesting what we want, I'm going to invite us to hold the possibility that we establish order in our mind first. Charles Fillmore said it's the first law of the universe, but he was actually quoting back to the Hermetic principle that it's called the first law of heaven is order. Some of y'all need to clean out your car. Now, I'm not pointing fingers or naming names, but I know what that's like. Some of you have a desk, and now I really am talking to myself now, a desk that's cluttered. When we experience clutter in our atmosphere, the mind becomes less ordered. Now, it got quiet in here. I didn't know your cars were such a sensitive subject. But I'm offering this as a way of establishing order in the mind is by establishing order in your environment. Just taking a few minutes. You know, the Ohio principle, OHIO, only handle it once. Now, I'm going to tell on myself here. I have about 3 grocery bags that are in my closet that are all full of mail I haven't gone through. Because what am I going to do with this? I know it's nothing important like time, but and then somebody is coming over, so I put it all in the grocery bag and put it in the closet. And I'm not lying. That's not quite establishing order. My house looks ordered when somebody comes over for the first time, but I've got those bags of mail I need to go through. But whatever it is for you, I invite you to establish order in your environment in some way, so then that order can be reflected in your mind. And when we have order reflected in our mind, then we can catch the divine idea, whether it be of prosperity, whether it be of wholeness and health, whether it be of welcoming love into our relationships. If our mind is ordered, we have room to have a different thought about the way life can be. Mind, idea, manifestation. Because we work with this law of circulation, this law of cause and effect, that if we're holding an effect in mind, this is our third principle, the law of mind action. Thoughts held in mind repeat or reproduce after their kind. This is the way we begin to manifest the life that we want. And today I'm inviting us to consider starting with order. Does our society reflect this back to you very much? Did I write this down? I think I did. I saw a pickup commercial the other day, and it just struck me. Let's see here, where was it? Yeah. Confidence does not come from within. It's an achievement. It must be pursued. I was like, if they were to take my sermon today and write the opposite commercial, that's what that is. Confidence doesn't come from within. You gotta make it happen. You gotta chase after it. And it was that masculine narrator's voice of we know who their audience is, right? I'm not the target market for that Ram truck. I didn't mean to mention their name. It's just the opposite of what I'm trying to tell you. Culture is going to give you so many messages that are just the opposite of this spiritual principle of mind, divine idea, manifestation. They're going to tell you that you got to work hard. You got to get yours before somebody else gets to it. They're going to give you these messages that are about greed, that are about separation, that are about ego. And what we're teaching today, going back to the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, the kingdom of heaven is within. It's not something you have to pursue. Now, the truck you may have to pursue. But it's about moving into a place of harmony and balance with life. And it reminded me of a Buddhist teaching. Oh yeah, we're going to Buddhism today too, sorry. This principle of the hungry ghost. Do you know about this? The pretas. Now, I did some research on it this past week. It's actually, it's in Asian folklore and many cultures that some people who live a really greedy life, they don't get to go to nirvana, they don't get to go to the version of heaven. They come back as a ghost without a body, and the ghost has a very tiny mouth and a huge stomach, and they exist eternally in this insatiable hunger and craving. That does not sound like a good existence in the afterlife, does it? So, it's a spirit suffering from an insatiable hunger and thirst, often due to a karmic retribution for greed and selfishness in a past life. It's a belief in many Asian cultures. In Buddhism, the Buddha himself taught about this not from a more metaphorical way of understanding. And he said, this is where I got today, probably from AI, but it's true. Some interpretations view the concept of the hungry ghost as a metaphor for human addiction and attachment to material possessions and desires. The endless pursuit of satisfaction without true fulfillment can be seen as parallel to the hungry ghost's plight. Now we're a little closer to home. Think about our culture. You got to pursue it. You got to go get it. You want it, you know you want it. I mean, that's what advertising does, right? I know we have some advertising people in the church. I'm not looking at you right now, but we want to, get somebody, I need that thing. I want that thing. And that is, again, that's not in alignment with this harmony and balance and order of mind, divine idea, manifestation. Jesus told one parable in particular about greed. This comes from Luke chapter 12, starting with verse 13. Someone in the crowd spoke to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family property with me." Can you just see that? I have a friend who's a family law attorney, and he said, if you want to know who you married, try divorcing them. And he said, if you want to know how you really feel about your siblings, let's get mom's estate settled. So anyway, we love attorneys when we need them. Jesus said, "Friend, who made me a judge or umpire between you?" Then he said, "Watch out. Be on your guard against wanting to have more and more things. Life is not made up by how much a person has." Then Jesus told a story. A certain rich man's land had produced a very large crop. He thought to himself, "What should I do? I don't have any place to store my crops." Then he said, "This is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. I will store my extra grain in them. I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain stored away for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and have a good time." But God said to him, "You foolish man, tonight I will take your life away from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself?" And Jesus said, "That is how it will be for whoever stores things away for themselves, but is not rich in the sight of God." And what does it mean to be rich in the sight of God? If we look to all those other teachings I mentioned of Jesus, it's being in harmony. It's trusting that what I need comes to me when I need it. And that does not mean that you don't have to have a job. Iyanla Van Zandt, years ago, she spoke at my church in Dallas, and she said, we all have a calling, we all have a purpose, and some of y'all got to get jobs too. It doesn't mean that we're not going to take care of those earthly needs of saving for retirement, paying the bills, saving for college kids, your kids for your college tuition, those kinds of things we do. But we don't want to be hooked into the idea that my storing away good is my source. Your 401k is not your source. Or whatever it is, because that's where we get cut off from divine flow. Because our divine mind, divine idea manifestation is out the window. We're like, I'm working for it. I'm making it happen myself. And that is where we can end up in a place of desire over satisfaction. Somebody years ago, I heard this as a kid in the Methodist Church, that there's a God-shaped hole inside every being. And we seek to fill it with all sorts of things, but it's only, and what I mean by that, and by then they were trying to get us to come down to the altar and, rededicate our lives, but what we're really trying to say is to get back in harmony with life. That's the true satisfaction and fulfillment. There's a mental disorder called hoarding, which I'm sure you're all aware of, and there may be some of you who are struggling with that yourself in your own homes, in your own life right now. I've seen it up close. It's really difficult, and it is a mental disorder. But there's this feeling that I have to have all this stuff around me so I'll be okay, but that stuff causes so much anxiety and pain. And many of us, maybe not to that degree, but we are cut off from source in a way that we are experiencing living in the material world in a similar way, where there's this fear, this anxiety, this feeling of heaviness around our finances or our things. And so this idea of the hungry ghost, it mentioned that it can be, addiction can be that. I've made no secret about my addiction and recovery path. It's a big part of my life. And there's a beautiful passage in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous I want to share with you. And it's talking about after we've begun to do those steps of rigorous honesty and accountability and we begin to do amends, it says this is what happens. If we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience will benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. That passage is often called the 12 Promises. And if you can imagine hopeless alcoholics in the 1920s, their lives were completely wrecks. They couldn't hold a job. Many of them, I heard somebody say, yeah, you always knew who your sponsor was in those days because you were sleeping on his couch. But it was a really desperate way. But just by following some spiritual principles and practices to end up with that, these are the most desperate, ego-driven people on the planet. Talking about the hungry ghost manifest, an active addict is that. And yet, by following a spiritual path, to come back to that place of self-seeking slips away. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. Now, early on in recovery, I was told that economic insecurity may not leave us, but fear of it will. And what I've also found is sometimes it comes back. That these promises move in and out of our lives. But if we keep our focus on living our life on a spiritual basis, again and again, those kinds of promises and experiences come back to us of freedom and fulfillment. I've said it a lot. Sometimes Unity gets a bad rap, not a bad rap, we get a reputation as being a success and abundance church, success and prosperity. And it's not the worst thing to be called. But what I've come to see is that, earthly success and just financial prosperity is not enough for our soul. What we're really seeking is freedom and fulfillment. We've come here. We've taken a birth. We chose that family according to some traditions. I know, that's one I'm still trying to work out. But we come here not for the purpose of getting rich using spiritual principles, but for the purpose of discovering the nature of our soul. And fulfillment only comes when we give that into service for others. We get to do what makes us so joyful and so filled with life, and then we deliver it. We become a beneficial presence for others. It's the opposite of the hungry ghost. So my last point is about how to create true wealth. How to create true wealth. Arthur C. Brooks has a wonderful recent book. It's called From Strength to Strength. And it's really, I've mentioned it before, it's really about how a lot of successful people really struggle moving into retirement. You know, people who've been all about success, achievement, amassing wealth, doing those kind of things, being very important and revered. When that begins to shift, it's like, who am I now? And in one of the chapters of the book, he talks about satisfaction and success. And here's what he says, that our culture, and he goes through a whole thing, but basically for him, our culture says satisfaction equals continually getting what you want. That's the message from our culture. Success equals continually having more than everybody else. And failure equals having less than other people. But what he came to is that instead of success being equal to always getting what we want, that success equals what you have divided by what you want. If you can think of a fraction, like 2/3, most of the time, we're only focused on the top number, the numerator, and the denominator is on the bottom. So when we start getting more, we start becoming more successful, our want grows bigger and bigger and bigger. He mentioned that he has friends who are worth hundreds of millions of dollars who feel like they don't have enough because they don't have $1 billion yet. And Hollywood stars who are so successful and wealthy and famous, but they don't feel like they have enough because they're not as famous as that person. Do you see? This is that hungry ghost idea. But he says if we can begin to focus our satisfaction on how much do I want? Will I really be happy with 4 cars, or is 1 enough? And I'm not going to ask people to raise your hands, but how many of you have more than 5 shirts? How many have more than 50 shirts? Really, don't raise your hands. How many do we need to be happy? How many do we need to get through this life? Now, again, I'm not against abundance. It's the intention behind it. If we feel like we have to have a certain number or a certain amount of something so that we'll be seen as successful, or to prove something to our Father, that's not true abundance. But if we can begin to simply ask that question, what do I need to feel satisfied? That is a beautiful way to increase your abundance, and you may not have to make a lot more money. A friend of mine used to say in college, he said, every artist I've ever met has a beautiful home, and some of them are so poor. And I began to think about, what is that? And it's true. I've been in the homes of many artists, and they want to make their environment reflect some kind of beauty. It's the same idea. Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, let there be light. And what's the next line? And there was light. God saw that the light was good. One of the things that we teach in the New Thought tradition is that same power, the ancient Hebrew people recorded as God, the Creator, saying, let there be light, and there was light. That same creative power is in us, and we're using it all the time. And when we're worrying about finances, it's almost as saying, let there be problems in my finances, and there are. When we're worrying about whatever it is, when we're focused on the lack and the insufficiency of life, guess what we're going to experience? The lack and the insufficiency of life. When we're focused on our own insufficiency and lack, guess what we're going to experience ourselves as? Lacking and insufficient. I mentioned Ernest Holmes' definition of love, the self-givingness of God into creation. You are that. You are love given form. You are the love of God that has been given birth, given a life here so that you get to experience freedom and fulfillment. Have I missed something? Are you with me? I think I need an amen right there. Can I hear an amen? Thank you. You are here to experience a life of freedom and fulfillment. Where are you placing your creative intention? Where are you placing your creative intention in your life? And what I'm going to ask you to consider is start with love. This class that we're teaching today, the Prosperity Plus, Mary Morrissey is a brilliant teacher of this, and she asked this question: what would you love? What would you love to experience in your finances? What would you love to experience in your health, in your body? What would you love to experience in your relationships? What would you love to experience in your vocation, in your work in the world? Start your intention with love and see what it is that wants to happen. I'm getting some amens back there. Somebody's picking up what I'm laying down today. So the work of clearing our consciousness is a lifelong job, in my experience. But I love this. This comes, it's actually Daniel Ladinsky. My dear friend Ziba, who is Persian, has told me not to say that this is a Hafez poem. It's a new poem inspired by the poetry of Hafez, that 14th century Sufi mystic. But this is one of my favorites. Stacy and I were talking about this one this week. Love wants to reach out and manhandle us, break all our teacup talk of God. If you had the courage and could give the beloved his choice, some nights he would just drag you around the room by your hair, ripping from your grip all those toys in the world that bring you no joy. Love sometimes gets tired of speaking sweetly, and it wants to rip to shreds your erroneous notions of truth that make you fight within yourself, dear one, and with others, causing the world to weep on too many fine days. God wants to manhandle us, lock us in a tiny room with himself, and practice his drop kick. The beloved sometimes wants to do us a great favor, hold us upside down and shake all the nonsense out. But when we hear he is in such a playful, drunken mood, most everyone I know quickly packs their bags and hightails it out of town. I love that poem. Have you ever been held upside down by God and shaken? I have. I've been drop kicked a couple of times. And it's all an invitation to come back to who I really am. Stop chasing the pickup truck. Come back to who I am. Come back to who I am. What would I love in this life? The older I get, it's less about acquiring more stuff. It's more about, am I using my gifts and talents to serve? Am I a part of a community that's in that same frame of mind? How can we make our world a better place? And that's what we're doing here. I'm so grateful. I think I better pray. It's about time. So I invite you now to turn within. What would we love to see in our life, in our world? Even though the mystics have said that order is the first law, I think love is the great reality. That we are here to be in that flow, the givingness of divine energy. Giving of who and what we truly are. And the more we give, the more we are that. So right now, I anchor my consciousness in the truth that love is the great reality. It is what brought us all here. It is what is moving through us. It is the thing that wants to express through us in more life, more love, more abundant living. To be more in that flow of divine love. And so I trust that what is happening in our lives, what's happening in our world, is God shaking us upside down, so maybe some of the nonsense will fall out, so that we won't be seeking after false idols and false goals that bring us no joy. And we can be a little bit more open, a little more pure, to reveal the gift of God that we are. We are divine beings having a human experience. We have come here to be the emissaries of love, to give and receive love in all manners of our life. So I speak my word that those of us in this community, those who are listening to the sound of my voice, are aligning with this principle, divine order grounded in love, and we are willing to step forward into recreating our lives in such a way that we align with these principles of life, light, love, power, beauty, peace, and joy, and we demonstrate our abundance in all ways. And we become a place of healing, a place of reconciliation. God is here, right where we are. God is here, right within us. All is well. We give thanks, and so it is. Amen. I love that I get this job where I get to get up here for 30 minutes and talk, and you don't interrupt me. It's really a great job. But I love to have this opportunity to share what I'm learning with you. And I love to be the leader of this community, that we are trying to create a place where people really get to connect with the truth of their being and meet other spiritually minded people. If no one has told you today that you are worthy of love and belonging, if no one has told you today that they love you, I love you. God bless you.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.